In the past 15 years or so, many modern metal bands have been implementing elements of pop and R&B genres into their sound. To me, this concept was executed well for the first time by a post-hardcore band Emarosa in their 2008 album Relativity. In the instrumental sense, the band stayed very much true to the post-hardcore sound, but with the addition of singer Johnny Craig, who brought his R&B spiked vocal style into the mix, Emarosa became a thing of its own and easily stood out in the post-hardcore scene. 2 years later, another band, Woe Is Me, which was leaning more in the direction of metalcore, had a similar idea, by having two vocalists, one of whom did the screams and second vocalist did the clean singing. Cleans were executed by Tyler Carter, who also had a very much R&B and pop influenced vocal style, for which he was dubbed as the Michael Jackson of metal. Even if we look a little further back, every time there was a hint of pop sensibility in heavy music, it usually came down to the vocals, or perhaps song structure, not so much the instrumental or production side of the music. That is until Bring Me the Horizon started to implement pop elements into their sound, beginning with their 2015 album That's the Spirit. And with every next release, they infused more and more elements of pop and electronic music into their own sound. However, their main choice in terms of instrumentation has always been guitars with distortion, live drums and versatile vocals. So their music always sounded like metal or rock with pop elements.
We're so full of
When it comes to metalcore or modern metal scene, Bring Me the Horizon have been trendsetters since their 2012 release Sempiternal. Their domination on the scene was only growing with every next release since then. Following the example of Bring Me the Horizon, almost every modern metal band and metalcore band have implemented elements of pop vocals into their music. At this point, it sounds to me as if having pop vocals in a metal song is almost mandatory. This is where I see a major shift in the mentality of an average fan of modern metal. Just a reminder, we used to feel very differently about pop in general in the 90s and 2000s.
The Backstreet Boys!
I just don't understand the boy band thing. I think it's like, it was like a virus that infiltrated all kinds of rock, and it's just there.
Talking about pop music, and you said that it makes you ashamed to be a singer, ashamed to be a songwriter, and what's worse is that you don't really know what to do about it. It's painful.
It's so auto-tuned, and it's so beat corrected, and it's so canned and processed and lifeless, and I mean, you might as well be listening to a fucking piece of wood. And to watch these people basically let a computer go through the motions and do all the work for them, it's insulting. The popular usage would dictate that that music is good because everybody listens to it.
Now, this interview with Corey Taylor looks like it's new, but it's actually 9 years old at the time of me recording this. And statements like auto-tuned, bit corrected, and processed, all of these elements apply to vast majority of modern metal bands. At this point, again, it's basically mandatory, and it has become kind of a standard on the heavy music scene. About 10 years ago, all of these practices were criticized in heavy music, and now we do just the same by default. I for one find this shift to be strange. Anyway, moving on. In '99, Korn was the biggest band in the world. In 2000, it was Limp Bizkit, and Linkin Park took over around 2001 or 2002. I'd say that nu metal was the answer to mainstream of the time, just like grunge was the answer to mainstream and even more so to hair metal at the dawn of the 90s. And yes, technically both grunge and nu metal have become mainstream eventually, but it still felt like counterculture, like it was underground music, competing for that #1 position on the charts. Bands didn't have to, or should I say didn't want to have anything to do with pop music. In fact, that was the point of these bands, making something that sounded abrasive and different to everything that was playing on the radio and topping the charts at the time. Slipknot's 2001 effort Iowa reached #1 on the UK's Billboard albums chart, and in 2025 Sleep Token did the same, but they sound so very different.
I can't stand to see your thalidomide robot face. Wear me out like Prada, devil in my details.
So obviously we have gone through quite a bit of change in terms of what gets into the charts when it comes to heavy music. Subconsciously we went from we want nothing to do with pop to we want to do pop. So why did this happen? Before we move any further, please drop a like, consider subscribing and start a conversation in the comment section. Worth mentioning that this is a flow of thoughts, so please don't jump to any conclusions in terms of my take on this matter until you watch the video to the end. Obviously, heavy music has not been creative for a while now. What I mean is there was no major unique movement in heavy music since 2010, when Djent bands broke onto the heavy music scene. But with passing years, simplified elements of Djent are being implemented into about 90% of the modern metal and metalcore music. There can be a case made for the trap metal thing from a few years back, but I think it was more like artists implementing metal into rap, not vice versa. Besides, it felt very much like a fleeting trend and a product of its time. When it comes to Sleep Token, however, they pushed the envelope in terms of pop elements even further than Bring Me the Horizon ever did. Pop was a major element of Sleep Token's sound since their conception, unlike Bring Me the Horizon. The band's third record, Take Me Back to Eden, is the one that earned Sleep Token recognition and praise for their innovative, genre-bending sound. And with the release of their latest record, Even in Arcadia, Sleep Token went even heavier on the pop aspect of their sound, which earned the band a #1 position on the Billboard's albums chart. Because of the abundance of pop elements in Sleep Token's latest effort, some people are reluctant to refer to this band as metal. In fact, the pop aspect of the band's sound on Even in Arcadia is very much dominant, but still there are moments like this. But since the two main genres in the band's sound are pop and metal, which is heavily in favor of pop, it makes more sense to refer to Sleep Token as a pop band with elements of metal.
We put a pop band at #1, is what we've done there, lads. We can sugarcoat it all we want. It's what we've done.
No. Progressive.
Progressive pop, at best, is what I'll give you.
That's exactly right. He's exactly right. It is progressive pop with metal influences.
Yeah.
Funny.
So I think it's reasonable to ask, is Sleep Token the future of modern metal, or is it a passing trend, and does metal need to go pop to reach that #1 position?
Sleep Token, top tier band. I think they're the next Slipknot. You know what I mean? Like the same impact that Slipknot had on our generation of like these masked fucking crazy dudes.
They have a wild fan base.
From what I can gather in terms of conversations happening online on all social platforms and alternative music news outlets, Sleep Token are receiving overwhelming support.
Sleep Token suck!
Annoying music, hideous sound, very bland, boring, uninspired writing, which is why I'm feeling a strong 1 to a light 2 on this project.
Yes, I know they do get some criticism here and there, but from what I can tell, it's mainly positive feedback. I mean, numbers speak for themselves. The support pours in not only from the audiences and the majority of metal and guitar YouTubers with large followings, but also from the peers of Sleep Token. Most recently, Sleep Token were praised by metal titans like Korn in regards to Sleep Token being headliners at the Download Festival. But I imagine this comes mainly from the perspective of professional courtesy and relatability, as Korn went through a very similar experience when they were criticized by metal old-timers in the 90s as Korn was growing in popularity. However, Korn achieved this by carving a very original sound that has never been heard before and dove into the dark subjects that were never really really explored in the mainstream landscape. They did not play by the rules of mainstream and were the farthest thing from candy pop and boy bands, which very much dominated the airwaves in the 90s. The same can be said about previously mentioned Slipknot and specifically their Iowa record. It's hard to imagine this sound reaching #1 position today. While Sleep Token very much adopted many sounds of existing pop and mainstream artists, like The Weeknd for example, and in terms of production can be compared to many other contemporary pop artists of the past 10 years. While on the heavy end, Sleep Token can be compared to bands like Deftones and many other modern metal bands. Sleep Token are often called genre fluid because of their blend of several genres, which are not limited by pop and metal alone. Elements of math rock, electronica, and death metal can also be heard. Effectively, Sleep Token are playing for both teams, pop and metal. However, I highly doubt that there is much overlap between your average pop fan of Taylor Swift and a Sleep Token fan. I'd say that Sleep Token fan base consists mainly of metal fans who have grown tired of metal or simply want more variety to the scene. The popularity of artists like Baby Metal and Poppy are also a proof of this trend, and most likely Sleep Token currently serves as the gateway band for many listeners who are new to heavy music. I guess this is a good thing because we don't have that many new accessible bands. I guess it's always good to have more eyes on the heavy music genres. Overall, genres in their pure form have very much lost their potency. Anything that seems to resonate with audiences nowadays is not really one genre, but several genres combined. And it's totally fine for any individual to enjoy any kind of music for what it is without stigmatizing artists. On a personal level, however, I miss the days when a record like Iowa could reach #1 position. That album stood for something different. It was rebellious and was defying what was acceptable in the mainstream. This comes down to not only the phenomenon of Sleep Token, but a simple fact that there is so much pop influence in modern metal that it's quite hard to relate to it, or find bands that I can simply enjoy without having a feeling like I'm listening to a boy band. I do like Bring Me the Horizon, but that is very much an exception. And as I mentioned before, I did enjoy Emarosa back in the day and the first record by Woe Is Me. And when it comes to pop, I want to make it clear that I have been listening to The Weeknd since 2013 and I enjoy quite a bit of his music, and unfortunately, none of the modern metal bands come even close to what The Weeknd has been able to achieve with his music. In fact, he has very much influenced and shaped contemporary pop probably more than any other artist did. So I don't think I fit into the quote-unquote gatekeeper cliche. I mean, come on, I have been talking about bands like Korn, Deftones, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park and so on my channel for years now, and many of these bands have been criticized for not being quote-unquote metal by actual gatekeepers. In fact, varied music with several genres being combined is very much up my alley, but what separates these bands from modern metal bands is that they were able to strike a perfect balance between aggression and sensitivity, chaos and order, and somehow remained accessible to a rather wide audience back in the day and up until now, and without becoming too boring, overly serious or whiny. Sleep Token have put themselves into a weird position. They intentionally gave a middle finger to the gatekeepers of heavy music, but at the same time they are using so many elements of contemporary pop, which makes me feel like, yeah, you're kind of breaking the rules of metal world, but you're also abiding by the rules of contemporary pop. At this point, I must admit that I miss the raw and unfiltered feel of heavy music. When Take Me Back to Eden came out and everyone was raving about how great the record is, with songs like Chokehold and The Summoning, I kind of understood the appeal. But with Even in Arcadia, I struggled to come to terms. I mean, trap beats have been overdone to death at this point. Pop did it, rap did it, trap metal did it. To me, it feels like Sleep Token is simply late to the party, and people who praise Sleep Token are saying that this is a great and daring move that defies the genre. And with reggaeton in Caramel, I honestly find it kind of offensive because it's been everywhere for years now. You can't escape it. I don't really want to hear it in the heavy music as well. And just a reminder that Despacito also falls into this category, and at the moment it's the second most viewed music video ever here on YouTube. I find reggaeton to be the worst and laziest subgenre of music ever, so it's like I've had enough. I understand that a lot has already been done in heavy music, and listeners are craving for something new, but there has to be something else we can experiment with other than the tired cliches of contemporary mainstream music. Is Sleep Token the future of metal? Only time will tell. Heavier music is still out there, and even if the technical aspect of many modern metal bands can only be commended, the appeal and originality seems to be lacking. If that wasn't the case, a heavier, less pop-influenced band would have been the topic of this video. In order for this to happen, the approach to music production needs to take a few steps back. I believe that the sound needs to become more organic and less processed. Bands need to ease up on the use of pitch correction, kick the habit of recording to a click track, and quantizing. In fact, it seems that Korn took a notice of this and are planning to go back to their roots and record their upcoming album the old school way, on tape. They did go for this approach on their 2009 effort, Korn 3, Remember Who You Are. Unfortunately, the outcome was not what Korn fans had hoped for, and according to the band, it was a miserable experience. These things cannot be forced and need to happen more naturally. They did record on analog tape their 2022 album Requiem as well, but they didn't commit to their old school sound on this one. Hopefully the upcoming Korn album will be able to achieve that. If the record will do well, we may witness another shift in modern metal. I think I'm very much in minority in terms of my views on this topic, and it was a difficult video to make, but I thought now is the right time to address this topic. I don't think that everyone should agree with me, but I simply feel like we have gotten way too far from what made metal music appealing in the first place. At the end of the day, it's a personal choice for anyone to like or dislike any kind of music. And I have to make it clear that I don't dislike Sleep Token completely. I like a few of their songs from their previous records and a few songs from even in Arcadia, and I understand why people like their music. But in my opinion, the praise they have been receiving is exaggerated quite a bit. What are your thoughts on the popularity of Sleep Token, and do you consider Sleep Token to be the future of metal? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.